Welcome back everyone, my name is Angela and today I'm going to be talking about how I travel on a budget because at this point I've done a lot of backpacking, I've gained a lot of insider knowledge, and my friend asked me this question and I thought about, just talking on the phone with her, but then I thought I might as well make a video about it because I think a lot of people are wondering this. So I figured I'd give you my take, and I'm going to break this video into two parts. The first part is going to be aspects of my life and my personality that help me travel on a budget that may or may not apply to you. And then the part two is going to be just like tips that basically anyone could apply, and I'll do a little bit of explaining on how to book flights in an inexpensive way, things like that. So I hope that after watching this video you feel a little bit more confident about making some travel plans and making those dreams come true. So a major thing that has helped me save money since I started working when I legally could at 16 years old is that I've been living at home. Other than when I lived at school, when I was in college, I've been living at home with my mom since I even graduated from college, so since 2020. Obviously there are some economic things going on too that have factored into that, and I know not everyone can or wants to do this, but I've chosen to live here and I'm really thankful that I have a happy and comfortable living situation with my mom. And also I have dogs here that I take care of, so it's not too bad. So one thing about me that has also made it easy for me to save money is that I don't have expensive taste, and I really question my decisions before I spend money on anything. Part of this is for environmental reasons, because the less that we buy, the less that's going to end up in a landfill. And there are a lot of things that, and I'm not perfect about this, but there are a lot of things that we buy that we obviously just don't need. And I always have in the back of my mind that, do I want to spend $15 on this shirt, or do I want to save it for a trip, which $15 could cover, like, depending on where you are, 2 or 3 nights in a hostel. So it's huge when you think about it like that. When I'm traveling, I don't tend to do expensive activities. Of course, sometimes I'll do a tour of a park if it's necessary to get into that park, making friends and just exploring the town or city with them, going on hikes. That's just the type of thing that I like to do, and thankfully they typically don't cost a lot of money. I find that even more interesting than doing the touristy things, so it really just depends on your personality, but yeah, that can save you a lot of money, just not spending money. And then finally, I tend to prefer countries that are cheaper. My favorite countries that I've been to, my top 2 favorite countries are India and Mexico, and they're both pretty cheap to travel. So the country that you choose will really make a huge difference on how expensive your trip is. It's not to say that you can't travel cheap in Europe or Australia or wherever it is that you want to go. It just might require cutting out some other luxuries that you would be able to enjoy in a cheaper country and not have to break the bank for, such as eating out, which I'm going to talk about in part 2, which we're going to get into now. So one skill that I would recommend building if you want to do a backpacking trip is be able to pack light. I could make a video about this, I would be happy to, but there are lots of videos about this on YouTube on how to pack light. You can get a pretty decently sized bag that still is considered a carry-on, and you'll never have to check it, which nowadays airlines are charging for everything. So a lot of them don't include a checked bag, but if you only have a carry-on size bag, then you'll never have to pay for that, and that adds up. I think they typically cost, like, I don't know, I never do it, so don't quote me, but like at least 30 to 40 bucks to check a bag, and then depending on the weight, blah blah blah. So yeah, just pack light. It makes everything easier, and you really don't need as much as you might think that you do. My next tip is be conscious of how you're booking your flights. So I typically use Google Flights. If you go on Google Flights, you type in maybe March 15th to March 30th, and then you click on their little calendar. You can see which dates are actually cheaper to fly on, and this can change by the day, sometimes hundreds of dollars difference just between Tuesday and Wednesday. If you're super flexible and you just know that you want to go to Colombia, for example, just click on that map and then you'll be able to see which cities in Colombia are the cheapest to fly into, and this can also range drastically because, the more popular a destination is, typically the cheaper it's going to be because there are more flights going there. So like I mentioned earlier, I like to stay in hostels when I travel, and hostels are generally the cheapest place to stay while traveling. So I book hostels on hostelworld.com or booking.com. I typically use Hostelworld just because it's easy to use, but sometimes you can find better prices on booking.com. And I just look at the reviews, make sure that it has good reviews, people like it. So yes, hostels are really cheap, but an even cheaper way to travel if you're really open to adventure is doing something like workaway.com or woofing, which I don't have experience with woofing, so I'll talk about Workaway, but they're both pretty similar. So Workaway is a website where you can sign on as a host or as a workawayer, and if as a workawayer like us, we would type in our destination, so maybe Guatemala, and you can type in a keyword. So if you want to volunteer as a yoga teacher, you can write yoga or yoga teacher and then hit enter, and then you'll see all of the hosts that are in Guatemala. You can see reviews on Workaway as well, so you know that where you're going is safe, other people have been there, they've enjoyed it, and you'll see a whole description by the host of what their place is like, what type of help they're looking for, when they need volunteers. So they might not need them in March, but they might need them in April or whatever. Their minimum stay, of how long they'd like you to stay. Now you can go on Workaway for free, but you do have to make an account to message anyone, and in order to message anyone, you do have to pay, I think it's about $60 a year, but if you're using it, it really pays itself off very quickly, because on Workaway, typically the way it works is the host will need about 20 to 25 hours of work from you a week, and a lot of times the work is not very hard, in exchange for a free place to stay, and a lot of times in exchange for at least a few free meals, sometimes all. You're just there working about 5 hours, 5 days a week, and then you have so much free time to explore that area, and it's just such a wonderful learning experience. Like, I've learned so much through the workaways that I've done. So if you're open to something like that, you can just go on the website and look at different opportunities. There will be pictures, you can kind of get your imagination going, and it's a really cool way to travel, and definitely the cheapest way to do it. So the next thing I'm going to talk about is transportation. The cheapest way, almost always, to travel in a country is to do it the way that local people do it. So local buses, trains, things like that. Uber and private rides and renting a car, those are going to be typically more expensive. Although I will say that Uber, because it doesn't function everywhere, but if you're in a place that it does function, like Mexico City, it's really, really cheap. Like, you might pay $2 for a 15-minute ride, whereas where I live it would be, I don't know, $40 or something like that. So Uber is an option, and I use it a lot in countries like that where it's not that expensive. For example, in India, I took multiple local buses to get to a really remote ashram that I wanted to visit. And did I find the schedule for the bus online or anywhere? Absolutely not. So of course, if you've never traveled on your own before or gone outside of your own country, then that might sound intimidating, so just ease into it. But another great resource that we have is the internet. I do a lot of research before I go somewhere on how to travel around this country, and you can get a lot of tips on that. So the next thing I'm going to mention is food. Like I said earlier, if you're in Europe, eating out is going to be pretty expensive. So a lot of travelers in Europe, in hostels, you'll see everyone cooking most, if not all, of their meals. So it depends where you are, but that's another pro of traveling in cheap countries, is that you can eat out and eat a really nice high quality meal for a very low price. And my last tip is, if you're going somewhere for a long time, I would recommend looking into getting a SIM card from that country and getting a phone plan through a phone carrier there. For example, in India, I got a SIM card there, and every month it was, I don't know, $5 to $7. So it's safety-wise so much better to have connection basically anywhere you are, and convenience-wise, obviously it's really nice to just have service, be able to look on your maps, call someone, whatever you need to do. So that is all I have for you. Again, it's definitely not everything. If there's something that you feel like I missed or you wish I had talked about, let me know in the comments below. And let me know what you want me to talk about next. I could do a video about how I pack light for long-term trips, or I could go more in depth on anything that I talked about here. So just let me know what you want to see, and I hope that this was helpful, and I hope you have a good day. Thanks for watching. See you next time.